Let's dive into the Marvel Cinematic Universe. This movie is the second one in chronological order according to the timeline, released in 2019, and it features Marvel's most powerful superhero, Captain Marvel, a superhero capable of taking down Thanos in an instant, a superheroine who lives by the motto, "My destiny is in my own hands." Her superpower, the ability to absorb any form of energy and make it her own. From Thanos' look of shock when he faced her in Avengers Endgame, you can tell just how powerful this woman truly is. So who exactly is Captain Marvel? And how did she get her powers? Let's find out. Captain Marvel's real name is Carol Danvers, and she's a native of Earth. In the original comics, Carol was born into a humble family in Boston. Her father favored her brothers, paying for them to go to college, while Carol had to drop out and work. Determined to follow her dreams, Carol went against her father's wishes and joined the military, only to be captured while serving in Afghanistan. You have to understand, enemy spies are treated inhumanely in every country. Even after enduring torture, Carol refused to betray her country. When terrorists attacked the local government, she seized the chance to escape. After returning to the U.S., Carol's bravery earned her a promotion and a pay raise. It was then that she met a scientist named Walter Lawson. However, Walter Lawson had already died by this point. The person posing as Lawson was actually a Kree named Mar-Vell. In the comics, Carol and Mar-Vell fall in love, but in the movie, Mar-Vell's character was changed to a female version, Dr. Wendy Lawson. Dr. Wendy Lawson retained the Kree identity. She had been sent to Earth by the Supreme Intelligence, the Kree's highest authority, as a spy to steal the Lightspeed engine, and that Lightspeed engine is none other than the Tesseract. In Captain America, the First Avenger, we saw Captain America's final showdown with Red Skull on a plane. Red Skull attempted to harness the power of the Tesseract to destroy Captain America. However, the Tesseract suddenly activated its energy, transporting Red Skull to an unknown planet, and then falling into the ocean. Later, while recovering Captain America, the US government also found the Tesseract, and they handed it over to S.H.I.E.L.D. S.H.I.E.L.D. formed a special research group to study the Tesseract, hoping to develop weapons beyond their time. Just like Red Skull had planned, one of these projects was the development of a light-speed ship, named Project Pegasus, and Wendy Lawson was the lead scientist on the project. Though Wendy Lawson was originally a Kree spy sent to Earth, she fell in love with the planet and its people, ultimately choosing to betray her own race. During a test flight of a jet equipped with the Lightspeed engine, Wendy and her student, Carol, were ambushed by Kree forces. Causing their jet to crash. Wendy was gravely injured, and Carol was shocked to see blue blood flowing from her.
Gotta destroy it before they get here.
Lawson?
My name is not Lawson. My real name is Mar-Vell, and I come from a planet called Hala. Just remember the coordinates, okay? You gotta save them without me.
Save who? How?
Now, I gotta blow this engine before they find it.
What are you doing?
Before Carol could make sense of what was happening, Kree squad leader Yon-Rogg appeared, killing Wendy and attempting to steal the Lightspeed engine. Trusting her mentor completely, Carol made the split-second decision to destroy the engine. When the engine exploded, all its energy was absorbed into Carol's body. This event completely changed Carol forever. Yon-Rogg took the unconscious Carol back to the Kree homeworld, Hala, where her memory was erased, and she was given the name Ver. She was trained to become a skilled Kree warrior, but Ver still occasionally dreamt of fragments of memories. These glimpses of her past life left her feeling both confused and unfamiliar with her own identity. Each time she woke up from these dreams, she would challenge her mentor, Yon-Rogg, to a sparring match to vent her overwhelming energy. At this point, Ver was easily swayed by her emotions, so Yon-Rogg patiently tried to teach her how to control them, but his lessons didn't seem to help.
Control it. Lose control again and you'll have to commune with the Supreme Intelligence. There's nothing more dangerous to a warrior than humor is a distraction. Anger only serves the enemy.
In the end, the Supreme Intelligence, the leader of the Kree, had to step in to teach Ver personally. The Supreme Intelligence was the ultimate authority on Hala, essentially an artificial intelligence that had evolved with Kree civilization. The form each Kree saw when encountering the supreme intelligence depended on their subconscious mind, and their subconscious is Dr. Wendy Lawson. The supreme intelligence began by teaching Ver that controlling her emotions would make her more powerful. Then, it gave Ver her mission. The Supreme Intelligence explained that the Skrulls' aggressive expansion was threatening the survival of the Kree. A Kree spy, who had been sent to infiltrate the Skrulls, had been captured and needed to be rescued. Ver was tasked with this mission: eliminate the Skrulls at the front lines and save the Kree spy. Commander Yanrog quickly assembled a team of Kree warriors. They boarded a ship and jumped through space, arriving at the border planet of the Skrulls. In heavy disguise, they used a submersible craft to slip through an underwater passage into Skrull territory, but as soon as they neared their target, they were ambushed by a group of Skrulls posing as refugees. A fierce battle broke out between the two sides. In the midst of the chaos, Ver managed to rescue the captive Kree spy. To her shock, the spy she had just saved was actually a Skrull in disguise. In the chaos, Ver was stunned by an electric shock from the Skrulls and captured by them. Seeing the increasing number of Skrulls, Yanrog decisively ordered a retreat. Meanwhile, Ver was tied up by the Skrulls, who began to extract memories from her mind. As they explored her memories, they discovered that the most significant person in her life was a woman named Wendy Lawson, whose chest bore the Project Pegasus insignia. This seemed to be exactly what the Skrulls had been searching for. However, when they tried to delve deeper into the coordinates for Project Pegasus, Ver's mind began to flicker. Suddenly, Ver woke up and used her powers to break free from her restraints. After taking down several Skrulls, she demanded to know why they were looking through her memories. The Skrulls told Ver that they had been searching for something called the Energy Core, which was the lightspeed engine developed by Wendy Lawson, the person who kept appearing in her memories. Ver was left even more confused. At that moment, more Skrulls arrived, with her hands bound by energy cuffs. Ver couldn't use her powers to attack. Faced with enemies in front and behind, Ver had no choice but to engage the Skrulls in hand-to-hand combat. Despite the danger, Ver didn't give up hope. With remarkable courage and skill, she fought her enemies, and in what seemed like an instant, the seemingly strong Skrulls were swept away like leaves in the wind, easily dispatched by Ver. However, she was caught off guard when a group of even stronger guards suddenly appeared. Armed with electrified batons, they struck Ver with shocking force, knocking her to the ground. As she staggered back, energy surged through her body. At last, Ver broke free of her restraints, shattering the cuffs, and defeated the remaining Skrulls. But in the process, her attack inadvertently caused a breach in the ship, and a powerful vacuum pulled Ver out into space. Thinking quickly, Ver put on her space helmet and, using the tremendous energy within her, flew back into the ship. Amid the chaos, Ver found a small escape pod and attempted to flee. But just as she launched the pod, Talos, the Skrull leader, struck with a well-timed attack. The pod spiraled out of control, crashing into a supermarket on Planet C-53. Planet C-53, of course, is Earth. The Skrulls weren't far behind, disguising themselves as humans and blending in. At this time, Earth was still in the 1980s, and the technology was relatively primitive. In search of help, Ver modified a payphone to contact Yanrog, who was far off in space. After giving him her location, the transmission suddenly cut off. Not long after, Nick Fury, who had yet to become the director of SHIELD, arrived at the scene with his subordinate, Coulson. After receiving a report, Ver casually revealed that she was from another planet, which left Fury and Coulson completely stunned. Just as Fury was about to take her in for questioning, the Skrulls launched a surprise attack. Ver fearlessly retaliated with photon blasts, chasing the Skrulls down. The Skrulls fled into a subway train, but Ver didn't hesitate to jump onto the train, smashing through the window. By then, the Skrulls had already morphed into the appearances of ordinary passengers. After a brief search, Ver's gaze locked onto an elderly woman. Without hesitation, she threw a punch at her. The Skrull, in disguise, kicked back in response. The two began to brawl in full view of the stunned passengers, drawing quite the crowd of onlookers. Seeing Ver attacking the elderly woman, the bystanders quickly intervened to stop her, giving the Skrull disguised as the old lady a chance to escape. Once Ver broke free from the crowd, the Skrull had already shifted forms and climbed onto the roof of the train. Ver quickly followed, and the two engaged in another intense battle. A powerful kick from the Skrull nearly sent Vere flying, but with lightning speed, she grabbed onto the edge of the train and continued her pursuit. Vere aimed at the Skrull, firing a deadly photon blast, but the Skrull cleverly dodged by jumping back into the train car. By now, the train had reached its stop. Vere had lost her target. However, the Skrull, in its elderly disguise, had dropped a communication device, which Vere picked up and decrypted. Discovering that they planned to meet at a nearby bar, Vere quickly located the bar using an internet cafe and raced there ahead of them. Meanwhile, Fury and his partner were speeding down the road in pursuit when Fury's phone rang. To his surprise, it was a call from Coulson, who was still back at the supermarket. Fury quickly realized that the Coulson sitting beside him was actually a Skrull in disguise. A fierce fight broke out in the car. The Skrull grabbed Fury by the throat, choking him. In a desperate move, Fury yanked the steering wheel, causing the car to swerve into oncoming traffic, and he managed to crash the Skrull into another vehicle, killing him. Seeing the Skrull's grotesque appearance, Fury covered the body with his jacket to avoid alarming the public. After investigating their whereabouts, Fury made his way to the bar as well. To confirm their identities, Fury began telling embarrassing childhood stories, knowing that Skrulls could only replicate recent memories, so they wouldn't know anything from years ago.
Name a detail so bizarre a Skrull could never fabricate it.
A toast is cut diagonally, I can't eat it. You didn't need that, did you?
No, I didn't, but I enjoyed it.
Okay, your turn. Prove you're not a Skrull.
Vere, however, wasn't interested in proving anything. She simply blasted an energy beam forward.
And how is that supposed to prove to me you're not a Skrull?
That's a photon blast.
And?
A Skrull can't do that.
They decided to team up to investigate Project Pegasus, the one the Skrulls had mentioned. They arrived at the secret Project Pegasus research facility, which had been abandoned since Wendy Lawson's death. A cute orange tabby cat wandered down the hallway, adding a bit of life to the otherwise eerie quiet. Eventually, they reached the archives room. After some searching, they found the design plans for the Lightspeed engine, as well as a notebook written in Kree. The notebook revealed a shocking secret: Wendy Lawson was a Kree, and 6 years ago, she had died in a crash during a test flight alongside a pilot. The Lightspeed engine they were developing had been destroyed in the crash, but what shocked Vere even more was a photograph she discovered. The pilot who had died in that crash was her. Meanwhile, Fury discreetly reported Vere's location to his superiors. The director of S.H.I.E.L.D. was preparing to personally lead a team to talk with the alien visitor. However, when the director addressed him as Nicholas, Fury immediately realized this was a Skrull in disguise. Fury had previously told Vere that anyone who knew him only ever called him by his last name, Fury. It was a consensus among those close to him. Sensing danger, Fury stepped out of the elevator early. He attempted to warn Vere and urged her to escape, but he was quickly captured by the crafty Skrull. A fierce fight broke out, but as a human, Fury was no match for the Skrull. Just when things were looking dire, Vere appeared like a superhero, swiftly overpowering the enemy and rescuing Fury from danger. They ran into Coulson at the stairwell, and without hesitation, Coulson let them go. In the underground hangar, they discovered a plane. As if guided by fate, they decided to use it to escape. Surprisingly, the orange tabby cat had silently snuck onto the plane. It showed an unusual affection for Vere, determined to uncover the truth about her past. Vere sought out her old friend Maria, as mentioned in the files. The moment Maria saw Vere, she was utterly shocked. As if questioning whether she was dreaming, Maria recounted the story of how they met and their days together as pilots. At that moment, Talos, the leader of the Skrulls, appeared. He didn't bring any new conflict but instead offered a recording. It was a black box recording from the day Carol and Wendy's plane had crashed. After listening to it, Carol was stunned to learn that the Skrulls' homeworld had been taken over by the Kree, and that the Kree had been trying to wipe out the Skrull race. This revelation turned Carol's entire understanding upside down. She had always believed she was part of the Kree, and that her people were the victims of Skrull aggression, but in reality, it was the opposite. Now, everything was clear. The Kree wanted the Lightspeed engine to dominate the universe, while the Skrulls sought it to find a new home. Safe from Kree detection, faced with this painful truth, Carol decided to help the Skrulls. It was an enormous task, but Carol was ready. She would fight alongside the Skrulls to help them find a new home. In Carol's memory, the Lightspeed engine she destroyed was actually just a portion of the Tesseract's energy. The Tesseract itself had been hidden by Dr. Wendy Lawson near the flight path of the plane they crashed in all those years ago.
I just need your help decoding the coordinates to Marvell's lab.
Those weren't coordinates. They're state vectors.
For orbital positioning and velocity.
You didn't find her lab on Earth because it's not on Earth.
That was the location on the date of the crash 6 years ago. If we track its course, we'll find it in orbit right now.
It's just basic physics.
In orbit. Was that so difficult to figure out? I mean, you're my science guy, right?
To leave her past self behind, Carol changed her green Kree uniform to a new red and blue suit. Without wasting time, they took off in the plane, heading straight towards space near Earth's orbit. Carol activated the cloaking device on her arm, and a massive, invisible spaceship gradually revealed itself before everyone's eyes like a dream. Once aboard the ship, they immediately found the Tesseract. At the same time, Talos found his family and the remaining Skrulls. It turned out that, with Wendy Lawson's help, these Skrulls had escaped the Kree's pursuit and were hiding here.
We didn't know what to do. Mar-Vell warned us not to send a signal for any reason. The Kree would find us.
You did the right thing.
However, their peace was shattered by a sudden intrusion. Jan-Rog and his Kree soldiers stormed the ship. Carol was about to fight back, but she suddenly felt her powers being suppressed by an invisible force. Jan-Rog had secretly placed a power-suppressing chip on her neck. Meanwhile, Fury and a few others were also captured.
Species, lurking, threat, high.
It's a cat, not Hannibal Lecter.
Species, human male, threat, low to none.
Load the Flurkin onto the Helion. Eject the others into space.
Jan-Rog connected Carol to the Supreme Intelligence once again, trying to brainwash her, but Carol was not one to yield easily. The unwavering strength in her heart, refusing to submit, began to surge.
My name is Carol. Fighting with one arm tied behind my back. But what happens when I'm finally set free?
At last, through constant struggle, Carol broke free from the Supreme Intelligence's hold. As she stood up again, she effortlessly ripped off the suppression chip, and the photon energy inside her erupted like a volcano. At that moment, Captain Marvel was truly born. Her body radiated light, and with a single motion, she knocked the Kree soldiers to the ground and reclaimed the Tesseract. This left Fury, who had never seen anything like it, completely stunned. Carol wanted Fury to safeguard the Tesseract, but knowing its immense power, he was hesitant to touch it. At that moment, the Flurkin, Goose, opened its mouth and swallowed the Tesseract. Carol was visibly stunned by this unexpected event. She quickly recovered and decided to take action. Carol and Maria helped the Skrulls evacuate, while Carol took the empty box and made her way toward the bridge to confront Jan-Rog. The Kree attempted to surround her from both sides, planning to capture her in one strike, but Carol punched the bridge, shattering it in an instant. Bronchar was left dumbfounded by the collapsing bridge. He tried to fight back, but a single punch from Carol knocked him out cold. One by one, the rest of the Kree soldiers tried to take her down, but none could match Carol's power. At that moment, Bronchar sneaked up behind Carol, catching her off guard. He knocked her to the ground and pinned her under a heavy metal beam, but within moments, Carol unleashed her immense power, shattering the beam that had bound her. Jan-Rog awoke from the wreckage and seized the opportunity to attack Carol while she was unguarded. She barely managed to block his strikes. In the end, Jan-Rog couldn't defeat Carol. He only managed to knock the box from her hands. Rog looks at the empty box and realizes he's been tricked. Meanwhile, Fury and the others, while attempting to escape, were pursued by Kree soldiers. In a moment of crisis, Goose transformed once again, opening its massive mouth and instantly devouring all the Kree pursuers. They quickly boarded the ship with the Skrulls and narrowly escaped, heading back toward Earth. But Jan-Rog, unwilling to accept defeat, prepared to chase them down in his fighter jet. Carol sensed his plan and tried to intercept him, but she was unexpectedly thrown into space. Just as Carol was about to fall back to Earth, a powerful energy surged from within her. Her eyes began to glow, and she shot into the sky with incredible speed, destroying Rog's ship in a single, Swift strike. At that moment, Carol had gained the ability to fly faster than the speed of light. Rog's ship couldn't withstand the immense force and ultimately crashed to the ground. However, at that moment, the Kree warlord Ronan arrived with his massive fleet to assist. Without hesitation, he fired several missiles at Earth, powerful enough to destroy the planet. Faced with this dire threat, Carol didn't hesitate. She flew directly into the swarm of missiles, stopping them with her bare hands, and then hurled them back toward Ronan's fleet. Ronan was visibly shocked by her feat.
C-53 doesn't have a defense system advanced enough to destroy our warheads. Take her down.
He sent out wave after wave of fighter ships to attack Carol, but not only did their attacks fail to harm her, she easily destroyed them one by one. Finally, with one swift, powerful flight maneuver, Carol single-handedly obliterated an entire battleship. She then flew up to Ronan's warship and unleashed a massive energy blast as a warning. Seeing this display of power, Ronan had no choice but to retreat. After her incredible victory, Carol returned to Earth. Having witnessed everything, Rog realized he could never defeat Carol. In desperation, he taunted her, challenging her to a one-on-one fight without powers. But in a heroic show of strength, Carol simply grabbed Rog, stuffed him back into his ship, and sent him flying back to the distant Kree homeworld. Meanwhile, Fury was playing with Goose. What seemed like a harmless interaction quickly took a turn when Goose swiped at Fury, instantly scratching one of his eyes. Fury didn't think much of it, assuming it was just a minor cat scratch. But Talos knew the true danger of a flurkin and realized that Fury's eye was permanently damaged. And that's how Nick Fury, the director of SHIELD, lost his eye. At the end of the movie, Carol handed Fury the pager she had modified when she first arrived on Earth. She warned him to only use it in the event of a real emergency and never to send unnecessary messages. Carol then set off on a journey through space with the Skrulls to help them find a new home. Back at SHIELD, having witnessed the incredible power of aliens, Fury decided to form a special team to prepare for future extraterrestrial threats. He recalled that Carol's call sign on her fighter jet had been Avenger, and so he named this new team the Avengers. Time passed, and when Thanos gathered the 6 Infinity Stones and snapped his fingers, Fury began to fade away. In that crucial moment, Fury used the pager to contact Captain Marvel, who was far away in space. And so, in Avengers Endgame, Captain Marvel returned, using her extraordinary powers to overpower Thanos and standing as a godlike protector of peace in the universe. The movie ends here, but the next chapter promises even more excitement. Marvel fans can check out my profile for more content. More thrilling adventures await.